I'm Beth. Standing in the middle of the ballroom, wine dripping from my apron, I watched as Brooke and Robert were escorted out by security. The room was filled with a mix of shock and relief, and I felt a sense of satisfaction wash over me. It was a long time coming, and I finally had my revenge. It all started in the boardroom. The air was thick with fear and the smell of lemon furniture polish, a scent I was all too familiar with after 20 years in the hospitality industry. Across the mahogany table sat Richard, the CEO I had supported through thick and thin since the 2008 financial crisis. He wouldn't meet my eyes, instead swirling the ice in his crystal tumbler and staring at the condensation as if it held the answers to the universe. Next to him was Lily, a 22-year-old with a silver spoon in her mouth. Her family was part of the old money in town, and she had never faced a real challenge in her life. She was scrolling through her phone, the artificial light illuminating her smug face. Richard finally mumbled, "We feel the company needs a fresher perspective. Lily has some innovative ideas about digital-first hospitality." I couldn't help but scoff. "Richard, last week Lily suggested we replace the concierge staff with virtual assistants. Our clients at these high-end hotels want personal service, not a robotic interaction." Lily looked up, her eyes cold and entitled. "See, Dad, this is what I mean. Beth is so old-fashioned. We're pivoting to a disruption model." I almost laughed. Her so-called disruption model sounded like something she read in a trendy blog while sipping on a designer coffee. Then, Richard dropped the bombshell. "The merger with Starstay is happening, and part of the deal is a restructuring of the executive board. We're going to have to let you go. Effective immediately." It wasn't just the firing that hurt. I had built this company's reputation from the ground up. I was the one who resolved the scandal at the Regency Hotel and secured the contract for the mayor's ball 3 years in a row. And now, I was being replaced by a girl who had no real understanding of the industry. I stood up, smoothing the skirt of my charcoal suit. "You're making a mistake, Richard. You're letting a child run the show." Lily snapped, "You're obsolete. Take the severance and go do something else." I walked out of that office with my head held high, but inside, I was seething. I knew I couldn't sit back and let them get away with this. I spent that first night staring at the New York skyline. The lights of the buildings I used to manage twinkled like distant memories. My phone buzzed with messages from colleagues offering their condolences, but I ignored them all. I needed to find a way to fight back. By 4 a.m. The shock had faded, and a clear plan formed in my mind. I knew Richard's company was planning to host their annual innovation gala in 3 months at the Grand Hall, a historic venue on the outskirts of the city. It was in a state of disrepair, with peeling paint and a leaky roof, but it had potential. I started liquidating my savings, refinancing my apartment, and calling in favors from my silent partners. They were old-school entrepreneurs who, like me, were skeptical of the new age tech-driven approach. I formed a holding company called Luna Holdings LLC, named after the moon, symbolizing my new beginning. I posed as a freelance event planner and visited the Grand Hall on a rainy Thursday. The manager, Mr. Thompson, was a nervous man who looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. "We have great availability," he stammered. I ran my gloved finger along a dusty windowsill. "I'm not interested in renting, Mr. Thompson. I represent an investment group interested in buying the property, lock, stock, and barrel." His face went pale at first, then a look of hope dawned on him. He was desperate to get out from under the mountain of debt. Negotiating the sale was easy. The bank was breathing down their necks, and I came in with an offer that was just enough to save them from bankruptcy. I kept my name out of the deal. My lawyer, Ava, who owed me a huge favor for saving her business from a legal disaster, handled all the paperwork. To the sellers, the buyer was just an anonymous LLC. While the lawyers were working on the deal, I kept an eye on Lily's team. She was all over social media, posting pictures of the new office she had redesigned. She replaced my classic wooden desk with a glass one and installed a trendy meditation corner. She also sent out the save the dates for the gala at the Grand Hall. I printed out the invitation and stuck it on my fridge. It was my goal, my chance to make them pay. The acquisition was finalized on a quiet Friday afternoon. I now owned the venue where Lily planned to launch her new brand. That night, I went to the Grand Hall alone. I walked into the empty ballroom, my footsteps echoing on the marble floor. The old HVAC system hummed, and I could tell it needed a new filter. Over the next few weeks, I quietly upgraded the place. I fixed the lighting so I could control it remotely, updated the security cameras, and reviewed every vendor contract. And then, I found it Clause 12C in the rental agreement. It stated that any guest who verbally abused or harassed the venue staff would be in breach of the contract, and the venue had the right to terminate the event immediately. I knew Lily was going to walk right into this trap. 3 days before the gala, Lily came for a site visit. I was in the back office, watching her on the security feed. She strutted in, followed by a group of nervous assistants and Richard, who looked like he had aged 10 years. "It smells musty in here," Lily announced, wrinkling her nose. "Can we pump in some fancy air freshener?" One of her assistants squeaked, "I'll ask the venue coordinator." Lily then pointed at the chandeliers. "These are so outdated. Can we replace them with LED lights? I want a modern, edgy look." Richard tried to reason with her. "Lily, maybe we should stick to the classic theme. The board is expecting it." Lily snapped, "The board is expecting the future, Dad. We're disrupting the industry." She then turned to Carlos, a kind-hearted waiter who had worked at the Grand Hall for 12 years. "Hey, you. Stop standing around and move those chairs. I want beanbags instead." Carlos looked confused. "Ma'am, the event is a formal dinner. Beanbags won't be appropriate." Lily rolled her eyes. "Do I look like I care? Just do what I say. Good help is so hard to find these days." I watched this unfold on the monitor, my blood boiling. I picked up the phone and called Ava. "Is Clause 12C fully enforceable in New York regarding immediate eviction?" Ava replied, "As long as you have proof of the breach." "I have both witnesses and recordings," I said, watching Lily berate Carlos further. Ava warned me, "Beth, if you do this, there's no going back. You'll burn all your bridges." I smiled. "I'm not just burning the bridges. I'm making them pay to watch the fire." The day of the gala arrived. The tension in the air was palpable. My staff was on edge, but they were also excited to see Lily get what was coming to her. I arrived at 4 p.m. I changed into the staff uniform, a simple black dress and apron. I pulled my hair back into a tight bun and removed all my jewelry. I wanted to be invisible, just another worker in the background. As I moved through the crowded ballroom, carrying a tray of champagne glasses, I was both exhilarated and terrified. People looked through me as if I was just a piece of furniture. I poured wine, cleared plates, and kept my head down. I made my way to the head table. Richard sat in the middle, looking defeated. Next to him was Lily, dressed in a gaudy sequined dress, live streaming the event. "Hey guys, we're live at the gala. It's all about luxury and disruption." She panned the camera around the room. I ducked slightly as I placed a fresh bottle of champagne on the table. Finally, she muttered, "I've been waiting for this. The service here is terrible, Dad. We should buy this place and tear it down." Richard sighed. "Lily, please. We're guests." Lily corrected him, "We're the money. Without us, this place is nothing." I filled her glass, my hand steady. I wanted to pour the champagne all over her, but I held back. I waited for the right moment. During the main course, Lily was telling a story about her recent trip to a luxury spa. She was waving her fork around wildly when a piece of steak landed on the white tablecloth. She stopped and looked at the stain, then looked up at me. "You, clean this mess up," she snapped, pointing at me. I froze for a second. Had she recognized me? "Me, ma'am?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "Yes, you. Look at this. The table is disgusting. Can you serve food in a pigsty?" I apologized and reached for her plate. "Don't just take the plate. Clean the stain," she shrieked. The room went quiet. The band stopped playing. I could feel the eyes of everyone in the room on my back. Lily grabbed her wine glass and deliberately tipped it over. The red wine spilled across the table, dripping onto the floor and onto my apron. "Now you really have something to clean," she sneered. I didn't panic. I slowly reached into my apron pocket and pulled out a clean white cloth. I folded it with precision, then stepped forward and wiped the spilled wine from the table. I moved with grace, just like I had done countless times in my career. I stood up straight, rolled my shoulders back, and looked Lily in the eye. This time, I wasn't looking at her as a server. I was looking at her as the owner of the venue. "Table 6 needs cleaning, Busgirl," Lily mocked, trying to regain control. "Get on your knees and scrub the floor." I said, "No." The word hung in the air like a gunshot. Lily laughed nervously. "Did the help just say no?" "Dad, fire her." Richard looked up, his face pale. He looked at me, and for a moment, recognition flashed in his eyes. "Beth," he whispered. Lily whipped her head around. "Who? What are you talking about?" I kept my eyes on Lily. "You seem to be confused about who's in charge here, Lily. Just because you rented the room doesn't mean you own the people in it." Lily stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. "My father's company is paying for this party. We own you." I said, "Actually, you don't. This venue was sold a few weeks ago, and the new owner is very particular about the conduct of guests, especially regarding Clause 12C of the rental agreement." I reached into the back of my apron and pulled out a black envelope. "This is your eviction notice." Lily scoffed, but her hand trembled as she took it. "You're crazy. You're just a waitress having a breakdown." She called for security, but when the security guards came, they stood on either side of her. "Miss Luna, is this the individual causing the disturbance?" The lead guard asked me, ignoring Lily. Lily's jaw dropped. "Miss Luna? Who is Miss Luna?" "I'm the CEO's daughter." I said, "Yes, this is the individual and her guest. They are in violation of the contract for abuse of staff, disorderly conduct, and destruction of property." Lily started to realize what was happening. The pieces were falling into place in her mind. I continued, "I bought this venue weeks ago, and I reserve the right to refuse service to anyone, especially those who don't know how to behave." Richard stood up. "Beth, please. Let's talk about this." I said, "We're done talking, Richard. You wanted disruption. Well, here it is." Lily opened the envelope and pulled out the invoice. Her eyes widened when she saw the amount, $50,000 for the full rental fee, damages, and a breach of contract penalty. "Read the bottom line, Lily," I said. She read, "Immediate termination of event privileges. Guests must vacate the premises within 15 minutes. She shrieked, "You can't do this. We have investors here, the press." I said, "I know. That's why I waited until the main course. I wanted everyone to see this." Richard tried to plead with me, offering me my job back and a consulting fee. But I had no interest. I said, "I don't want a job at a sinking ship. I want to see you pay for your mistakes." I addressed the room, "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption. The host of this event has violated the terms of our service, so the event is concluded. However, the kitchen has prepared a delicious dessert, and the bar is now open on the house for everyone except the host party." A ripple of nervous laughter went through the room. People were confused but also entertained. I pointed at Lily and Richard. You and your executive team are leaving now. Lily refused to leave. I'm calling the police. I said calmly, go ahead. I have the deed to the building, the signed contract with Clause 12C highlighted, and video footage of your abuse. Lily gasped. She looked around at the guests, who were now looking at her with disgust. Her facade of a visionary CEO was crumbling. Richard finally grabbed her arm. Let's go, Lily. Before it gets worse. They were escorted out through the back exit, past the dumpsters. It was a long walk of shame down the ballroom, flanked by my security team. As they passed by, I saw Marcus, as the CFO, raise his glass of scotch in a silent toast to me. After they left, the room erupted in cheers. The staff celebrated, and I felt a sense of accomplishment. I walked into the kitchen, where the chefs were banging their ladles on the counters, and the waiters were clapping. I leaned against the prep table and let out a long breath. The adrenaline was starting to fade, and my hands were shaking slightly. I untied my stained apron and tossed it into the laundry bin. Back to work, I said, smiling. We have guests to serve. A week later, the news broke. The newspaper ran the headline, Gala Disaster, CEO's daughter evicted by mystery landlord. The stock price of Richard's company dropped 14% in 2 days. My phone started ringing off the hook with vendors wanting to work with me. I was back in my tailored suits, working from my office at the Grand Hall. I had officially registered Luna Holdings, LLC as a hospitality management group. Then, I received an email from a junior assistant at Richard's firm, asking for availability at the Grand View Plaza, another prestigious venue in the city. I had bought a controlling stake in the company that managed its bookings. I told my assistant, tell them we have availability, but due to market volatility and recent events, the rental rate has been tripled. Plus, a non-refundable security deposit of $100,000 and prepayment for estimated damages of $50,000. And we need final approval on all event speakers and agendas. They had no choice but to accept. I was slowly tightening the noose around their necks. A month later, I hosted my own event at the Grand Hall, the Luna Holdings launch. The room was filled with the city's top chefs, reliable vendors, and my loyal staff. Carlos was there, sitting at a table with his family, wearing a suit I had bought for him. I stood at the podium, wearing a midnight blue velvet dress. I looked out at the room and said, hospitality is not about servitude. It's about stewardship and creating a space where people feel respected. Respect is a two-way street, and those who forget that will pay the price. The applause was warm and genuine. It felt like a new beginning. As the band played a jazz standard, I walked through the room, shaking hands and thanking people. I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was Marcus. Beth, this is incredible. You played the long game. I sipped my martini. I didn't play a game, Marcus. I just enforced the rules. As I looked out the window, I saw Lily standing on the sidewalk, looking in through the window. She looked cold and small. Our eyes met, but I didn't wave or smirk. I simply pulled the velvet curtain shut, blocking her view. I turned back to my party, to my people. Miguel, champagne for table 6. And make sure the glasses are spotless. I walked back into the warmth, leaving the cold outside where it belonged. And that's how I got my revenge.